Thank you, Jerome, for the very lovely introduction. What we're going to talk to you about today is interactive voice response and what can it be in the market research world. So to know more about this, we'll do it in 3 different steps. The first step will be interactive voice response. Where do we meet it every day? What can we do with it? What does it mean on our daily life? In the second stage, we'll talk more about, and that's where Cristiano will take over, what can it mean in the market research world? So what can you all do with interactive voice response and the technology behind it? And in the end, we'll also have a look at, okay, what are our dreams for the future? What can we do in a very close future? Now the technical thing comes along. Oh, you see those 2 guys up front there? That's them 10 years ago. So the first thing we would like to talk about is interactive voice response. What is it now? Where is it used? If you want to know something about one or the other word, we take a look at Google. You see there are like 4 million records referring to interactive voice response to IVR. So it's something that means something on the market. If you look at a timeline for IVR, it's something which has begun to grow in the 90s and which became a very hot trending topic early 2000s. So it's not really young technology. Why are we talking about it today? Because we see a trend in market research that it's been adopted bit by bit also to automate certain stuff and to offer additional features to customers. So, and what is interactive voice response? If we look at Wikipedia, they say it's an interaction between a human person and a computer, or by means of pushing digits, so tapping a number on your phone, or by means of a human voice. That's it basically. It's not rocket science, it's a very basic interaction between human beings and computers. So in what areas can we meet it? First of all, we have an interaction between the computer and the human beings itself, the agents and the computers. On the other hand, we can also look at incoming contacts, at outgoing contacts, and like this we can build up a quadrant where IVR, so interactive voice response, is in the middle, and where we see different applications. So now if we look at the first segment where we have as example incoming calls to a traditional telephony system and agents talking to each other. The traditional thing is the thing you all know, press 1 for Dutch, press 2 for French, press 3 for English, and you get directed to the right agent with the right language. That's a kind of caller segmentation. That's IVR. That's something we've been meeting the last 10 years, everybody of us. Now if you look at a more automated way, it can be fully automated. It can be a self-service system where if you want to do, if you need some kind of help, or if you're in a big company and you want to activate a kind of piece of software on your machine, that you just dial into the system and that people help you automatically by means of the computer by doing these jobs. It can also be in an outbound world that those things are used. So it can be a proactive customer service where if you have a problem that an IVR system calls you, informs you about the current status, and that you get the chance to be passed on to the agent to get more details about your thing. So it could be an additional service that is offered. And finally, if we fill up the whole quadrant, the one we don't like a lot, but which is also quite often used in IVR as an example, is debt collection. If you're late with an invoice, an IVR system can call you and can tell you, okay, you're late, can you check what has happened, please? So when you look at it, lots of people think, yeah, it's a computer, it's annoying, it's boring. It's not, I want to talk to a person. And when you look at the internet, that's something you see a lot. If you read blogs, people call IVR, instead of interactive voice response, an irritating and vapid robot answerer. That's the kind of feeling we sometimes have. It doesn't have to be always the case, but sometimes it happens. There's also the fact that people might get lost in an IVR flow. If you need to choose between 3,500 different options before you have the chance to talk to an agent, the chance is very big that you throw down your phone and that you find another company to supply the same service to you. So that's a bit the feeling about market research. But that's not really completely true, because there has been some research about IVR, and of course, the X at the bottom, that's something companies like. Is it a profitable tool? And on the other hand, we also look at, well, the people from DMG Consult who did the research also looked at the customer experience. Is it an outstanding customer experience or not? And yeah, It's typical, very good example. Political campaign calls are quite low from a profitability point of view, and a customer doesn't like it. But you also have things like subscription service, special occasion calls, loyalty calls, travel alerts, and so on, which are quite profitable for a company to automate it like that, and which are also very good from a customer experience point of view, because you give additional information to the customer at the moment he needs it. Now, surveying is there in the area where you have quite good customer experience and a bit profitability. So we should work on it that it goes more up to the right corner. So what can we do now with interactive voice research? Mind the word, I've changed from interactive voice response to interactive voice research. So how can you use the same technology in a market research environment? We have the same quadrant, we just replace the research by response, and we can fill up in all the 4 segments possibilities to run IVR jobs within a market research environment. The first one, a traditional one, could be a post-call survey. You dial into the help desk of your phone operator, they help you. At the end, you get redirected to an IVR system to give some information about, was this a good call, are you happy with the agent, etc. Traditional thing which happens quite a lot already right now. If you go one step further, it can also be a completely automated inbound call. So where you don't talk to an agent first, but where you get directed to the IVR system immediately. And this could be a very typical example, could be if you have a consumption tracker. People need to give you information about their beer consumption. Yeah, I'm from Belgium, so it has to be beer consumption, of course. You want to give that information to the data system at the moment you do the consumption. If you get home at 2 o'clock at night and you have to sit behind your PC to give all the information about you've been drinking, it's not sure that you will be giving very adequate information. So if you have an option to dial in at certain moments to a system, you can automate this process completely. Now, if we go one step further then, and we look at outbound calling, we can use it in several ways. We call it the call-out principle, where you have a mix between IVR and agents, and this could be very useful if you have anonymous data collection. Imagine you have some questions where you know that people are quite reluctant to give that data to any agent available. You can tell the people, okay, now we transfer you to an IVR system, you'll be able to give that confidential data and it will be collected onto the same data set. And then finally, we can also do any fully automated survey. I didn't make any example because now it's up to Cristiano to tell you something more about how it's been used in practice in real life by means of a business case realized at GN Research. Thank
you. It's a very pleasure to me present this case history. We conducted a survey for one of the most important energy company around the world. It's Eni. It's based in Italy, and we did the survey based on the IVR methodology as a customer satisfaction with call center service, and the frequency of this survey it was monthly. And we used an outbound IVR methodology. We used the questionnaire 4 minutes long, and the content of the questionnaire were the overall satisfaction towards the call center, the satisfaction with operator politeness, professionalism, and call time, and the one-call solution. Then intention to recommend, it's one of the most important questionnaire of the questionnaire. Here I would like to explain you the process we followed. The first step was call center calls. So clients of Eni calls the call center, and every day call to get information and solve problems and make complaints. The following step was to send to GN Research, so to us, client details who agreed to be recontacted for the survey. So GN Research creates a representative sample of daily calls for reason of call. and then we upload all the clients on the Askia system to start the calls with the IVR system. So the last step was check some data, daily checks to understand if we have discontinuities on data for events like blackout. And then we did some tests around this IVR survey. First of all, we launched a CATI benchmark, a sample 1,000 interviews every week, proportional to the daily volume of calls, and representative for reason of calling. So the methodology is CATI, and the questionnaire was 8 minutes because we added more in-depth questions like reason of dissatisfaction. Then we used a different scale because IVR system could be used only with 0 to 9 digit. So with CATI we used the 0 to 10 scale. So we used a different scale. Then we have normalized the scale so we can make comparison between the two methodologies, and we can see the scores are in line. So we have not particular difference between CATI data and IVR data. We have we make comparison for overall satisfaction, call center IVR satisfaction, waiting time, keenness of operator, and intention to recommend. The last test we did was 3 samples. In one sample, the satisfaction score were collected using a scale at 0 to 9 scale. Second sample was it's a 1 to 10 scale, but using different dialing methods. So not 0, 1, 0, 1 to 9, but 0, 0, 1 to collect the score 1, 0, 2, and then 10. The third sample was again a 1 to 10 satisfaction score, but using the hash-tree to the star to collect the data. So if we are satisfied, we can use 10, then the star. So the objective of this test was verify effects on the redemption rate and satisfaction score using different method of dialing. And results, we noticed an higher redemption rate using a classic IVR 0 to 9 scale. So the redemption rate in this method was 30%. If we use 2 digits IVR, we noticed a lower redemption rate, so 12%, and similar data also for score using the star character to collect data. And we have also measured the CATI response rate. Obviously, the CATI response rate is higher than the IVR response rate because the interviewer can help the respondent to ask and treat the respondent and ask him to stay at phone. We noticed also difference in terms of scores. All the satisfaction are lower. this is not due to the scale, but because we normalize the data. So it's we are different caused by the method. So this is another point we noticed. And following our experience, we can say that IVR has plus, like cost reduction, because we don't need interviewers and supervisor, obviously, just quantitative checks on data. Then we save in time, because no need to recruit interviewers, so we can skip some step of the recruiting process. We can manage high volumes. In theory, we can contact thousands of people in few minutes. We are not limits in terms of interviewer. And then we can avoid the interviewer distortion, because bad interpretation of questions, like different tone of the interview, can distort, can create noise to the interview. For us, we have some menus like dialing problems, errors, obligation to use only a limited number of buttons, a lower redemption rate, presence of interviewer can increase the redemption rate, because can help the respondent to stay at phone. And data quality, because well-trained interviewers can help the respondent to understand the questionnaire, and so increase the quality, the data quality. And that's it. This is our test, and we can present this result and this plus and minus. Thank you.
Thanks, Cristiano, for the explanation. So I think that there are some things that we can remember immediately, that the business case proves that IVR has no real impact on the scores, but it has an impact on response rates, and we must take care of which methodology we choose with regarding to digits, because this can have a small impact on score. Just to summarize and to give you some tips and hints for the future, there are also some pitfalls I would like to give that you may not fall into when you look at using IVR. The first one is that experience shows that having an IVR without any option to talk to a human being, so to talk to an agent, is a risky one, because you have the chance that people hang up and that you lose them. The second one that you have to take into account is that if you pass from the computer, so from the IVR system to the agent, that you have a good handoff of data. If somebody gave some information in the IVR flow, you must be sure that your agent who talks to that same person already has that information. There's nothing so annoying than needing to give the same information 2 or 3 times during one call. The third pitfall is that you need to be aware of bad structures in your menus. If you remember the cartoon in the beginning, if you have menus with 12 choices and 5 different paths to get to the same way, it might get complex. So not too much choices, 4 or 5, or a score from 0 to 9, and nothing more than that. Then watch also out with the quality of your voices in your IVR. Poor recording quality can cause people to hang up the phone. So if you record them in that way, the chance is very big that after the first message, people will walk away. Second, then the one but last thing is give people also the chance to take a time out, to get back later, to, if it's a long call, to make sure that you don't push them too much in using the IVR system. And then finally, the most important one, test, 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 and test it once more again yourself. Because that's the only way that you really know that everything you've been doing is working in a very adequate way. So now, let's maybe take a look at the future. Is there a future for IVR, for interactive voice response and interactive voice research? Well, if you look at the research itself, I think, first of all, quotas on IVR surveys. That's something which is available right now. So define 50% male, 50% female. Also, run live reporting on top of your IVR data. Run an IVR job and publish the data directly by means of Askia Vista. Have live reportals. This is available now in the version which is about to be released. If we look at our dreams, well, the first dream is that we could have something that makes it much easier to put a survey online. We are all looking at automating stuff as much as possible, and that's also one point of attention for us, that we want to have a tool which automates your jobs as much as possible. And then, much more important is the use of text-to-speech technology and speech recognition technology. Those both things, so reading out automatically text and recognizing human voices by means of speech recognition, those both things are in the market since a very long time, but are now coming to a maturity which makes it possible to start using them in the interactive voice research systems. So, to end with, do we need interviewers? Oh yes, we all need interviewers. But we can use IVR as a part of a complete mechanism to do certain stuff in an automated way. So, that's it. Now it's up to you again, Jerome. Thank you.